Christmas is all about family. But when it came to brotherly love, there was none greater than that between Del Boy and Rodney Trotter. Most of the time.
You couldn't have had a better co-partner than Nick. He said to me, "I'll always want to be your wingman." We liked and respected each other so much, and we were genuinely good friends.
What you never lost because of those two great performances was the love that the two had for each other as brothers.
All I ever got was a 50-yard certificate at school.
Well, you only need to swim 50 yards. Down.
On your bike.
You could believe they were brothers. There's a deep bond between them, but they fight like cat and dog some of the time.
They both got so brilliant that it was sort of effortless and we knew them. They almost didn't have to say very much for us to know what was going on.
I can't think of two better people to have learnt from than David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst.
The Christmas specials were always centred around the holy trinity of trotters.
What's the joke?
Nothing much. We was just talking about Wally's, that's all.
But following the death of Leonard Pearce in 1984, just as Series 4 started filming, the whole future of the show was thrown into doubt.
John's decision was, do we recast? In other words, Grandad lives on with a different actor playing it, and I think John rejected that in probably a minute flat.
And then we thought, well, what we'll do is we'll introduce another character. We'll get a member of the family that was a long-lost member.
Enter Uncle Albert, who would go on to appear in 13 Christmas specials.
What's that dirty-looking thing?
That is your uncle, Rodney.
He brought another side to the Trotters, and I mean a really clever way of not replicating a character who's no longer there, but actually maintaining that sort of triumvirate between the three of them.
Uncle Albert would become a firm fan favourite in the festive editions of Only Fools. But Buster Merrifield, who played him, wasn't even a trained actor.
It's just extraordinary because he was an amateur actor who had been a bank manager. But he put his photograph in and they thought, oh, that looks good. And it's obviously the extravagant white beard. And of course, at Christmas time, you think it's just Father Christmas. It's just perfect.
Uncle Albert, that well-known naval captain of Her Majesty's Navy, was another great character.
And no Christmas special was complete without his wartime reminiscing.
During the war, huh?
During the war, he was always going, during the war.
Boy, watch it, he's a war hero. He's got a right to speak.
I fought for free speech.
Shut up.
During the war.
He didn't go to the war at all.
Uncle Albert would be front and centre in the 1985 Christmas special To Hull and Back, which saw the Trotters charter a boat to Holland, putting Uncle Albert at the helm. What could possibly go wrong?
Ahoy there! Yeah. Ship ahoy!
Del, every single ship or vessel that man has ever sailed on has sunk.
I know. Luck's got to change sometime, innit, Rodney?
The BBC stumped up the budget to do a feature-length episode. A large budget, £850,000 this cost. And that's a bit of a gamble, but the show had become so popular at that point that they were prepared to do it.
This is a show that basically started in a flat, and that was its main scene. And then suddenly it's kind of big and it's out in the real world. So it's quite a shock for the viewer, but it's quite wow as well.
We were going to Amsterdam, and how to get there was a bit of a problem. So we thought we'd hire a boat to take us there.
Now, Albert, slow down. You're going too fast. Hey? To your right.
Got a captain, that was Uncle Albert,
You mean starboard? I mean right. Don't start all that Captain Birdseye bloody cobblers. I said right.
Finally being at sea with the guy who goes on about being at sea all the time is funny, and it draws you in.
This episode called for location filming on the North Sea. Cast and crew set sail to bring us Christmas special TV magic.
In those days, there was nothing called health and safety. So I think we probably just went down to the docks and saw that all looked, some scruffy old boat, found out who owned it, and we booked it.
This island race, this septic isle.
We didn't think anything of it at the time. Absolutely nothing.
Us Brits, we got salt water flowing through our veins.
Oh, will you shut up about blood and veins?
We set out in this boat, all of us, go out into the ocean.
Wait till we get out there on the big waves. We'll be going up and down and up and down.
And we were ricketing about in the middle of the North Sea.
This boat's going, I mean, and I'd be fascinated to know how they sort of survived it.
All the costume department was seasick. The cameraman was feeling sick. I was on the boom at one point holding the sound because the boom operator was being sick.
You're sick, Del.
What? Not leave without you, tart.
David and Nick were kind of, I think, no, Nick wasn't feeling great.
Oh, God.
And while much of the action could be filmed in close-up on the harbour, there was one particular moment that required the boat to go offshore. Quite a bit offshore. All the way to an oil rig.
The problem was that we soon realised that Uncle Albert wasn't quite as well equipped about navigation as he purported to be. And so what the joke was, we stopped at the bottom of the oil rig and Derek Trotter shouts up,
Oi! Oi! John! Holland! What? Which way to Holland?
Holland? And the bloke just looks at him, and in this manky little trawler with Uncle Albert at the helm. And he just looks at him and just points that way and goes,
It's over there! Cheers, pal! Albert, Holland is that way.
What you saw on that boat in fiction was like them all going, what the hell are these idiots doing? Was it like it in real life? What are these idiots doing in the middle of the sea?
Rodney, see? Don't know the way, you just got to ask someone, ain't you?
Despite being a mere 40 seconds long, this iconic scene took a 12-hour round trip to film.
So that was the day to do one line, really, basically. Very funny. That episode was one of the, if not the most expensive joke ever to have been perpetrated, certainly by the BBC, if not for television, the world over.
Who thinks of that? You know, obviously John Sullivan. It was absolutely brilliant.
for them to be spending the level of money that they spent as Fools and Horses grew was unparalleled. But they knew they could attract tens of millions of viewers on Christmas Day. It was the highlight. There was nothing to touch it.
So hilarious was this epic tale of high jinks on the high seas, the BBC decided to go head-to-head with rivals ITV in the battle for viewers.
There's always been a rivalry between the BBC and ITV, especially at Christmas.
This was a jewel in the crown for the BBC schedules at Christmas, and they very deliberately put it up against ITV's big hope of Minder.
I remember that we were disappointed because Minder was one of the big, successful shows that ITV had. That was sort of so dangerous because we thought we were going to lose a lot of the audience to ITV.
And this is at a time when you can't just stick the video on or set the digital box to record it.
People would be, I've got to make a choice now. I've either got to watch Minder or we've got to watch Fools and Horses.
And Auntie went all out with their press campaign, as seen in this rare BBC Breakfast news sketch.
Mr. Trotter, now you assured Mr. Buttons that these white mice were magic and they'd turn into horses.
Did I say that?
You most certainly did.
Turn into horses.
Yes, and I'm here to tell you, Mr. Trotter, that, surprise, surprise, these white mice did not turn into horses.
Really?
I suppose in Michael Gray's mind it was, well, we're going to we're going to pinch your audience. That's what it. We've got the best show.
With almost 17 million of us tuning in, Only Fools were the clear winners, over ITV's 12.5 million.
So actually, Michael Grade won his point, really, didn't he?
You know, so it's quite an achievement, really.
Nobody, even minded, no one could compete with it. There's no one. I don't know anybody who would have competed with Only Fools in that time. And every year, it got better and better.
And the following year's Christmas special,
Good shot, you Grace.
which saw the Trotters mingling with high society, got almost 19 million viewers.
Come on, where are you? I know you're out there somewhere, you free-wheel jello.
But despite its popularity, behind the scenes it was far from plain sailing.
Good morning, Charlie Hoedown.
Royal Flush was a late decision by the BBC to want a show for that Christmas period. I think the filming was squeezed into a few weeks, and a lot of factors conspired against us.
Nick Lyndhurst went down with a bout of flu. David Jason lost his voice, and they lost filming days because of that.
The problems of Royal Flush sort of went right down to the wire.
Finally, it was still being edited, actually, early hours of Christmas Day, on the day it was shown.
Where did you get that gun from?
Iggy Higgins.
Iggy Higgins robs banks.
No, but it's Saturday.
The best line after is about the fact that, you know, this gun was used in some robberies. It's an actual real gun.
The Christmas specials weren't just entertaining, festive ratings winners. John Sullivan also used them as a chance to introduce key new characters, not least in 1988's BAFTA-winning Dates.
Is it Derek?
Raquel?
Yes.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
That was the very first scene I ever filmed with David. And I remember being quite nervous. And I remember walking in and Roger Lloyd Pack, who played Trigger, said, "Oh, welcome on board. Your life will never quite be the same again."
It was quite obvious that Dale couldn't go on being, a bachelor, he'd have a wife. And you need to have a female character to play off. So in terms of the structure of the programme, Raquel was the vital element.
This is a bit like Brief Encounter, isn't it? That's my favourite film.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's mine. Yeah, mine.
Really?
Yeah.
When we came to do this scene at Waterloo Station, it was meant to be not in the middle of rush hour. So they closed off Waterloo Station. That's the power of Fools and Horses. They kept everybody back for 15, 20 minutes while we filmed these sequences.
My favourite bit is when the big spaceship comes down and all the little Martians come out.
That's Close Encounters.
Yeah, I love it.
That was the first thing we ever did when I was in the programme, meeting under the clock at Waterloo Station. I don't think anyone realised, of course, probably how iconic that scene was going to be long-term. They just, at the time, it was just a rather sweet way of two people on a dating agency meeting under a clock. And then, of course, it came out on Christmas Day and on Boxing Day, and, yeah, it was amazing. I mean, everyone, everywhere had watched it, but it certainly did change my life.
But I think it's unfair to say that everything he touches goes wrong.
Coming up, an explosive Christmas moment.
Our coach has just blown up.
It wasn't a trick because it was actually done.
The entire studio just sort of exploded.